Hey everybody, welcome to another model building workshop. I'm Mr. Allen, coming to you from Providence, Rhode Island, part of the Community Libraries of Providence. I'm with the Smith Hill location. Anyway, today we're going to talk about some vintage kits, some oldies. These are the Panzer III tanks made by Tamiya. We're going to look at the old ones from the 70s, and then I'll show you the newer one too. So this was the old Panzer III Off MN kit from the 70s. I don't know if there's a date on this box. I'm kind of doubting it. Looks like it was a reissue. Well, it's mostly in Japanese, though it has the model rectifier sticker on it, which a lot of us that built these kits are familiar with, as they went to New Jersey and got modified for an American market, basically, is what that is. So this kit came with the tank and a lot of options and a crew. Actually, I guess these are just officers that are in a meeting. Came with that kit of figures as well. So we're going to take a peek at the instruction sheet and what's in the old box here. And these are the old kits that had these really nice history lessons, although the translations were not always fantastic, but gave you a pretty good history of the tank and how it was used. So this kit had, well, your typical Tamiya blow-up instructions, which are pretty universal. And you had some choices with this kit. You could do the long-barreled M version or the short-barreled N version. And these were basically the last two designs of this Panzer III series. So you can see there the short-barreled N and the long-barreled M. And then you have the side skirts that you could assemble if you wanted to do that. And of course, you could do it without the side skirts, depending on your mood. And there's your instructions for the set of officers in the field meeting. And they have a fun picture down here of a parade or formation there of under inspection, I guess. And then they have painting guide and markings and placement. So they give you, I guess, 3 different options here for the type N. And I've come to learn over the years that Tamiya tended to use decal options that they sourced from photographs from wartime archives, but sometimes they weren't always of the actual vehicle that the model depicted. So what am I getting at here is I don't know necessarily if these decal options are really accurate for a type N or not. Questionable. And try to see what else there is here. So they're listing, let's see, they have markings here for the 18th Tank Division, which was mostly famous for having river crossings and having submersible tanks in it. That's why it has a skull above the waves, is because it was known for river crossings. And then there's the 3rd Tank Division with the bear. And the 3rd, the 14th Tank Division, which I think was destroyed around Stalingrad. And there's the 15th and the 21st of the Africa Corps. So you get a bunch of different options here. Anyway, so the parts breakdown. lots of different parts. I got this at a sale a while back, and someone had pre-painted some of these pieces, and it looks like they were pre-painted in an old mustard color. There's the whole top. The whole bottom was a tub, like so. You get the set of figures in there. Turret top and decals are there. A few other minor details. Let's see. Squish this all back in there. It's kind of an art to putting things back in the box to make them storage. Yeah. Something like that. So here's the kit that I had built of that back in the day. I went with the 18th. Although, like I'm saying, that the Type N, I don't know if it would have been set up like this with the 18th in gray, because I think the river crossings that these tanks were famous for were in 41, in which case the N wasn't around yet. The N came out around 42, 43, I believe. I'll double check on the instruction sheet. This is the last of the Panzer IIIs. And it's funny because what happened with the Panzer III as the war in Russia progressed and the Germans realized they needed to keep upgunning their tanks, and the Panzer III had been originally designed in the 30s with a 37 millimeter cannon for anti-tank combat. And it was quickly realized during the campaign in France and Poland that these 37 millimeter guns were just not strong enough, really, for tank versus tank combat. So the Type F came along, where they began to upgun with a short-barreled 50 millimeter cannon, which had some better armor penetrating powers than the 37. And there was a line of tanks that had the short-barreled 50. Then we came with the J and the L tanks, that the long-barreled 50 millimeter gun, which had better penetrating power. And then, you know, the L and M and so forth had the long-barreled 50 millimeter cannon. And in 1943, in the Battle of Kursk, they realized, all right, this long-barrel 50 is better, but it's still not good enough. The 75 millimeter anti-tank gun, the PaK 40, etc., were better at armor penetration. So, and they could only be fitted in the Panzer IV and larger size tanks. So what happened, in essence, then, bear with me for a minute. So the Panzer III was designed to be the tank versus tank mainstay of the German army. That was the plan. And the Panzer IV was built to be the infantry support tank with a short-barreled howitzer, the 75 millimeter short barrel, for support. But by 43, it was pointless that the Panzer III just could not be the main tank versus tank battle tank any longer, and it was switched with the Panzer IV. It now has the short-barreled 75 millimeter gun that the Panzer IV had. The Panzer IV has been upgunned to a long-barreled 75 millimeter, and that one became the backbone of the German army for tank versus tank combat. And this one got delegated down to the support tank, so they flipped places. I know that was kind of a long-winded version of that, but anyway, that's what happened. So this is the Type N that has the short-barreled 75 as a support tank. My thinking with the markings on this is that the 18th Panzer Division, after it had done all of the famous river crossing stuff, it was still in use, but it tended to be more of a it became more of a regular Panzer Division at that point, and they were used to defend the German lines later in the war, and they still retaining the skull and crossbones over the waves. but these probably would have been painted in the dark yellow of the period, so most likely this should have been in a dark yellow color for later in the war. Panzer N in a defensive position in 44. Anyway, so this is the kit, which it does look pretty good overall. I did make some mistakes here. I know I've got a decal on the front there that really isn't supposed to be on this kit. I did build this in the 90s, I think, is when I put this together. I had an issue with the turret basket. I didn't do it correctly. Therefore, the camouflage netting is on there. I found the instructions to be a little bit vague on the placement for the baskets, so therefore that's what happened. So anyway, there's the 3N. I mean, these were fun kits. They went together really well. I remember building these and building them with my nephew at the time. You know, we had fun with these. One of the big problems with this kit, though, if I can find it here in this, is that the long-barreled 50mm gun on this kit was a single piece. Yeah, it's here, so I can show you. It doesn't look too bad on this one, but it is a single piece molded barrel. I think it's got a little cap on the end. But I found on the other kit that I had there, that I had built, that this was slightly warped and really wasn't really usable. So I ended up going with a short barrel, which was molded better. And therefore, I went with a short barrel. So Tamiya also, back in the day, naturally, they did the StuG 3 with the same molds. And here's what this kit looks like. And I built this, again, I built this around the 90s sometime, because I know this Dragon crew set that I added came about later. And this is a fun one for an airbrush to paint these great schemes. And weathering it was kind of fun to do. And I did this for a Luftwaffe airborne unit. And that's why we have these crew in their nice Luftwaffe type uniforms, is what I did with it. So obviously Tamiya has upgraded all of these kits, because these are from the 70s, and they've certainly done a lot more advanced technology and better molding. Well, let's take a look through the old kit instructions here. And this one came with a bunch of paratroopers. Again, kind of a similar breakdown here in the instruction sheet. Typical Tamiya fashion. They had the armored skirts as a single piece, but I did, begin to slice some of these off, which you can do with an X-Acto blade to make individual panels out of them, though it is a bit hard to do on the 3, because they really do have this pretty solid support the way they built it, so it's not the best side skirt design for accuracy. It's pretty solid in there. And it did give you an option here too of gun barrels, see, because you could do the long barreled 75mm cannon for the anti-tank, which is what most of them were, but it's got a short barreled, I think it's a 105mm gun. Yeah, 105. That's a howitzer for the, I think it's called a Sturmhobitz, which is a mobile artillery piece, a support cannon. which is what the StuG was originally designed to do. Again, carrying that short barrel 75, which is what the first versions of the StuG were built for, as an infantry support vehicle, but then they were changed over to these tank killers, basically, because they were cheaper to build and easier to make. You could rush these things out to the field with the cannons on them. Very quick tank killers. And it was also a way of, well, you had these chassis from the Panzer IIIs. Once they became obsolete, you switched to this, and you could crank out lots of these tank killers, which are very effective. So let's see. Oh, and it shows it here. Progression from the short-barreled 75 original versions of the support gun, and then the larger barrel one here. And here it shows a later version one. It's got the anti-magnetic paste on there, so they couldn't put magnetic mines on it to blow them up. And it's got the different cast mantlet there, the pig's head or Salkov style mantlet. This has got the solid block one, as you can see, where the gun meets the body there. So that's what that is. And let's see what it's got for. Yes, and then there's the paratroopers that came with it. That kit was an old kit, reasonable quality, probably not the best, but not bad. And then your marking options there, which it does explain quite a bit. Painting and what these units were for, although it doesn't tell you where they were located. That tended to be an issue with the early Tamiya kits. They didn't always say where they were. Though there is a story of this StuG ace, and then they do give you the markings for that here if you wanted to do, what's his name? Hugo Primozic from the 667th Independent Assault Gun Company. And the other ones here were the 16th Tank Division, the 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich, the Panzer Grenadier Division Großdeutschland, and as I mentioned, the 11th Airborne Assault Gun Brigade, which is what I tried to replicate here. Although the other thing with this is a lot of it's conjectural, because other than the one from Großdeutschland, which is based on a photograph, so we know this one, and through historical documents that one is based on actual photo. The rest of these are, make it up as you go, which as a model builder was kind of fun, but I have no idea what the marking and painting would have been like for this actual unit. So I just said it was, A company headquarters, vehicle number 2. Whether that really existed, I have no idea, but it was fun to do. Okay, so then, careful juggling here. Many years later, Tamiya then decided to just redo the Panzer III altogether, and they came up with the Panzer III. This is the Type L, and this is an interesting kit for a number of different reasons. So we've completely thrown out these old molds and started completely fresh. Completely different tank and a couple of options there. You could do gray. You could do like this one with a nice green overspray. And there's another one here with brown overspray. Which is kind of fun. What's that one there? The 11th Panzer Vision. That's during the battles of Kursk, is the one in brown, which is the one that I decided to depict here. And this is from 1997. So this is about 20 years after these guys, this kit comes out. Now, in the meantime, Dragon had done a complete line of Panzer IIIs, pretty much covering like the E, the Type E with a short 37mm gun. They did the G, the H, the Torch Panzer, which is the swimming tanks, the actual swimming tank design that was used by the 18th and I think the 4th Panzer Division, which is planning on invading England. Never happened, but they were working on that. And then they've got like a Command K version. They've got the M, the N, and it's so forth. Dragon put those out during the 90s. Then Tamiya decided to do the L. Oops, easy guys. Again, typical fashion with their nice history lesson on the front here. And it's completely retooled, and now we're getting, you know, much better detail. Which only makes sense as the technology of model making increased. You can see the whole design changed. It's got a minimal interior. For the gun, you can put these doors in the bottom hull, which began to change during the Panzer 3L, whether they had that exit door done. Yeah, I've got it on this one. This is it here. You can see there's a door by the wheels for the crew to get out. I'll show you more of that in a second. Then you get these optional armor plating that went on the gun mantlet. And that was optional in that when they began building these tanks, the plan was to have them all armed with this extra armor plate on the front there, the spaced armor piece, but not all of them had them at the time of the construction, so some went out without that front piece. They had the frame was built, but they didn't have the front piece yet. So they were just sent out into combat without it. These also have the gluable plastic, rubber type tracks, but they're gluable. I know there were problems with this design later on. If you painted some of their gluable rubber band tracks with enamel paint, they tended to dry up and crack and become brittle and just fall apart. I believe I must have painted this one with the Tamiya acrylics because these are still intact. But that's something you got to watch out for on some of their tank kits, because if you use a enamel thinner on it, then those tracks are just going to disintegrate. Is what happens. And I've discovered that the hard way. And then you can buy replacement tracks that Tamiya's made of, you know, link by link or linked in length pieces, so you can replace it when that happens. Of course, it's on your own dime, but they did realize that there was a problem. So there's that. The painting guide. And they give a pretty good breakdown of what these are. You know, heavy tank battalion there, and a green and dark yellow. All right, so here's what we're talking about. Forgot about this. So here's the 18th Panzer, and this is correct. This is 18th Panzer later in 1942. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering about that, if it's really, or 43. But anyway, you'll see that it's in yellow because it's later. This is post river crossing period. And then the other one here is one in North Africa for the 10th Panzer Division in a desert sand color. Although that's telling you to paint it in dark yellow, which is not exactly accurate. It would have been a different sand type of paint they would have used at that point in the war. Because I don't think they shifted over to the dark yellow yet in Europe and then sent it there. I don't think that would have been accurate. So you'll see that the parts are molded a lot crisper here, better detailed parts, but still very buildable. very enjoyable tank kit. And here's the, we gotta get these things to come out. Just be careful with those. Yeah, you don't want them to disintegrate on you if you use them. And you'll see there's a big difference in the detail of this hull than what we saw on the earlier ones that just did not have any of that on it. And here she is here. And then, of course, at the end of the video, I will give you some better close-ups of these vehicles. And there is some interior. Not much, but some, so you can see something inside. So that's a quick run-through of some of the Tamiya versions of the Panzer III. They did release a Panzer IIIN, which is with the newer molding, so which looks way superior to this one. That's out there as well. And of course they've done the Sturmgeschütz 3. In fact, they've done a couple of versions of the Sturmgeschütz 3. They've done the German Army one, and they did a one for Finland, and I'll show you those boxings just as, you know, at the end of this video as well, so you can see what they look like too. All right. Yeah, so we'll take a pause. I'll grab those boxes of the Sturmgeschütz so you can see them, and then we'll get some close-ups of some of these other kits. And yeah, hang on just a second. Yeah, so as we were saying, here's the Sturmgeschütz 3 Type G that they've done. Let's see if there's a date on this one. Sometimes they put it, yeah, 1995. They did this one. Oops. Which gives you a number of different painting options. Some are just solid Panzer yellow. And the Sturmgeschütz bits with the 105 is included in here. So you get quite a bit going on with this kit. So the side skirts are done differently now, because the railings are put on separate. And then you can put the pieces on. And I suppose you could cut some of these off if you wanted to, although this looks like it's going to be a little bit of a challenge with this one as well. Yeah, it might be slightly challenging here too. Different gun barrels. Kind of a low parts count. It's got the rubber tracks again, the gluable ones, but you know, you may want to be cautious. It's got some string for the towing cables. So that's that one there. And I think the figures are kind of fun. They're playing with a dog. Just kind of an interesting concept. There you go. So there's that one. And for those of you like me, I'm in Providence, Rhode Island, here in New England. So, and for those of you out there that are in the New England area, we do have the American Heritage Tank Museum in Hudson, Massachusetts. And I'm not a spokesperson for them, but you can go and see one of these in the museum and see how this looks in person. You know, if you want references to how this looks in real life, it's right there. And for those of you that are in the UK, near Bovington. You can see this one. This is the StuG 3 Type G. This is the Finnish Army version. And Finland did some modifications to their StuG 3s that they were purchased from the Germans. What year was this one from? If it says 2010, so this is a lot more recent. So it's got the logs on the side that Finland certainly had plenty of lumber. So that was one option that they put on to try to help defend it. They added some bolt-on armor to the hull bottom. Now I get a booklet design. And how you put the different designs together here. And there's a couple of options here. Let's see when they talk about them. All right, so they tended to carry an ammunition storage box on the back, which you can see over here. Slightly different machine gun, captured Russian gun up on top of the hull. And there's a couple of options here. They one where they put the spare tires were put up on the superstructure there. That's one type, and the other one they put they added cement. They put cement. The Germans did this as well in some of theirs. Added cement blocks to the front to add protection there, and put the logs on the side of the vehicle. Fun little ad here. The Finnish markings look like Nazi markings. Actually, it's not quite. It's a different variation of that cross that was used for centuries throughout Eastern Europe. So here you get a look at the logs and the cement pieces here. You get Finnish crew members. Oh, let me take that back. You get both. You get both the German guys from the other kit, including the dog. They're in here too. And the Finnish guys here. You can also buy a separate Finnish tank crew from Dragon or Mini Iron. I'm trying to think what it. Someone does put together a Finnish tank crew. And then there's a painting guide in Finnish colors for the different types of vehicles, and a history of the battle on which these were used on the Finnish front against the Russians. At that point, the summer of '44. So that's what that is. Oops. And there you have it. So that's a quick-ish look at the Tamiya models and the Panzer III line of tanks that they produce, from the old ones in the 70s up to what they're doing now. All right, hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll see you guys soon. Keep on building.